Hi, this is Scott, the Tall Woodworker. Today, I'm going to show you how I turned this 30 caliber bolt action pen for a friend of mine. This is actually a pretty cool one. I really like the way the walnut turned out. So we're going to get on the lathe and show you how this gets done. So I have this really nice piece of walnut that's highly figured. It came from a piece that I picked up at the store, just kind of some of their cutoff areas. Usually you can get like a nice sized board for about 10 bucks and really creates a lot of good sized pieces of wood. So I kind of already know the sizing I want. There is a bit of an issue right here that I want to make sure I get rid of. So we're going to draw a line there to cut past. And then give ourselves a little bit of working room. We're going to go ahead and cut that up on the table saw. So I went ahead and put 2 pencil marks on 2 adjacent faces. The idea there is because this isn't a perfect square, I want to make sure that I'm putting it in the clamp the same way, both for this step and for the square up step. So just want to make sure that those lines are always facing towards me as I insert this in here. And I'm just basically picking a point roughly around the center to drill my hole in. Unfortunately, my drill doesn't have enough depth to it, so I do have to make a minor adjustment to finish the rest of the hole. So now we're going to go ahead and put the barrel inside the blank. Even though sometimes these barrels come with its own scuff marks already on them, I like to do my own scuff marks. Do a bit of a test fit, make sure that it goes in nice and clean. This is a really important thing to try to do, because if you're having any resistance now, you're going to get resistance once you glue it. And it's a big pain in the butt to try to work it back in if you have the super glue in there. This stuff cures pretty quickly. So we're going to drizzle some medium CA glue on here, then we're going to insert it in, and we rotate as we put it in there, and we let that sit to dry for a little bit. So here I've set up the barrel trimmer for drilling out pens. The bottom portion will go into the tube, which helps line it up, make sure that this cutter up on the top is perpendicular to the pen barrel. In addition, this little notch out here will clean up any super glue that just happens to be still caught inside of that pen. Once again, because of the capacity of my drill press, I kind of have to do this in a couple different steps. So first we're going to clean the barrel, lift the table up, and then we're going to go ahead and square off the 2 ends. Okay, so now I am ready to mount the blank onto the mandrel. Because I didn't drill the hole perfectly down the center, it's going to be a little lopsided at first, and this part is going to be trimmed first, but eventually we'll get it down to perfectly round and then we can start shaping. So go ahead and put on the bushings. Bushings are used for the sizing of the pen blank. Lock down our tailstock. It's a little bit wild, but we'll get by it, and let's get to turning. Okay, so like I said, the first thing we're going to have to do is get this so that it's a cylinder. That's the most important step right now. Okay, so we got this almost completely rounded over, so we can start shaping it into the final dimensions. And the idea is to get the wood to get down as close as I can to these metal bushings, because that's what's going to size it for the pen. So some people like to use kind of more of a bulgy design where they'll have more material somewhere in the middle, even if it's offset a bit, than towards the ends. I personally like to make my pens straight all the way down, so that's what I'm trying to do here. There's a few curves that are still in it because of the round head, so I'm going to switch over to the flathead bit, or flathead chisel, and we're going to start flattening this out. Starting to look really nice. We're getting really close at this end. We still got a little bit more work to do here. So I'm going to go ahead and continue shaping those down. I won't mind a little bit of a bulge in there. Like I said, I just don't like the very pronounced ones that some people like, and everybody has their own personal preference, but this is the way that I prefer to do them. So we're going to get those down to the bushing, and we'll move on to the next steps. Okay, I think we're about as close enough as we can get without damaging the bushings, so we're going to stop with the chisels, and we're going to switch over to sandpaper. I use these sanding strips to help rough down and shape the final design. And the idea is still to try to get down to the bushings. I'm almost dead on here, still got a little bit here. Sandpaper is going to do that while it smooths out the entire piece. So far this is looking really, really nice. It's got a lot of figure to it. I'm really happy with the way this is turning out so far. So, knock on wood, let's hope that nothing goes wrong from here. And that's just about perfect to the bushing, so I'm happy with that. You may have noticed that while it was spinning, I was still touching the lathe, and because we're dealing with something small and very smooth, it's fairly safe to do that. I wouldn't do that with a full-size blank or even with a bigger bowl, but with something like this where you're trying to get down to something very small, there's usually no risk with that. So, fine with that. Next thing we do is, you might see there's a bunch of circular scratches in here. Now we go back over with the sandpaper and we go side to side, and that starts evening out the scratches. You want to do this for every sandpaper grit that you use, because if you forget to do this, it's almost, when you polish it, you will most likely see those concentric circles. So you want to give this a hit after every single time. So I'm going to go ahead and do the remaining grits. I have 4 more grits of sandpaper. We're going to turn the lathe on, smooth it out, turn it off, go side to side, and go up, and keep going from there. So we just went all the way up to 600 grit. I want to wipe this down with some mineral spirits, and then we'll do it one more time at the 600 grit once we get off any sawdust. Now what's nice about using the mineral spirits is you're going to start to see exactly what we're looking at here. This is where you can start seeing the differences in grain patterns and everything else, and just see what your finished work is going to look once you've taken care of everything. Love the way that this looks. And the mineral spirits basically help get off any sawdust that might be on there. And we're just going to go ahead and buff that dry, and then we're going to let the lathe run for a bit. I think we're actually pretty good, and we don't need to do another 600. So we're going to leave it at that. We're going to let this spin for just a little bit. Okay, since we got our shape down to exactly where we want, I'm going to go ahead and take it off the mandrel. And I want to get these bushings off because I don't want to risk doing any damage to them. So, looking pretty good. We're going to put on these plastic bushings. Normally these are used when you're using super glue as the finish, CA glue, because nothing sticks to them. But in my case, I want to put a little bit of I want to put some different oils on here, and because of that, I don't want to ruin the bushings or stain them, so I'll put them on here because, well, nothing will stick to them. So I'm going to be using some Danish oil, which is a walnut oil, since we're using this on walnut. And this will really help make the grain pattern pop. So it's a nice dark oil. I always love the way that walnut looks when you put Danish oil on it. I'm going to let this spin, dry up a bit, maybe apply a second coat while it's spinning, and then we'll move on to the next step. That looks beautiful. So the final step before we take it off the lathe is I want to put a friction polish on this. So I'm using an Aussie oil, which has, it's basically good for all wood turned items. It'll give it a bit of a coating, help protect it, while still giving the wood its natural feel. Some people like to use CA to finish it, and I have used it on some pens. I've had some issues with it recently, so that's why I'm using this instead. The CA finish gives a plasticky feel, but it also is much harder to damage afterwards. But this is a good compromise in between. It's better than the bare wood, not as hard as the CA finish, but still looks amazing, and will definitely turn out a really nice pen. So this is a friction polish, which means that you actually do want to pinch it fairly hard to create heat. The heat is what actually cures it. And usually with as few paper towels as I have on here, I will start feeling it heat up after a little bit. Not to the point of burning myself, but that's how you know that it's really activating and really getting rubbed down in there. And there we go. That is one gorgeous looking walnut pen blank. You got some nice shiny on there that's gonna just make it look spectacular whenever you have it under any type of lights. And the way that walnut, the color shifts as you rotate it, there's just nothing like that. I really love the way that walnut looks when it's turned and then once it's finished properly. So we're gonna go ahead and get this off the lathe and we're going to start some assembly. Okay, so before assembly, I always make sure I consult the instructions that come with it. They'll give you a few different tips as to the proper order of assembly. For this one in particular, they say to make sure that you don't unscrew the tip from this, otherwise you could damage the kit, so we're not going to do that. One thing I want to do on this though is right now this is in a good position for a right-handed person, though the person who I'm giving this to is left-handed. So I want to flip this around so everything's on the opposite side. So there's a little Phillips head screw inside here. We're just going to go ahead and loosen that up. And then that should let us rotate this bolt around to the opposite side. And then we can go ahead and tighten that back up. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but just helps make something look a little bit more complete. But now the clip is in the way, so we can fix that by unscrewing the back side. The clip will then rotate around, and there's another notch on the opposite side. And you just tighten that back down, and now the clip is in proper alignment and it's perfect for a left-hand user. So now that we got that taken care of, we're going to go ahead and start the assembly. I definitely want to make sure that I'm protecting this one because there's a lot of shiny on here. So we're going to put a piece of cloth just to help protect the tip and everything else. So it does want to do the tip first, where I determine which side I want to use for that. I'm going to line that up. Need a little bit more distance. Next, we want to put the back end in. For that, we want to see if we can find that perfect place to put the clip. Because most likely the clip is what you're going to be seeing when you're riding with this. So I think that's the perfect position for this. Okay. And then finally, you can remove the tip, drop in the ink cartridge and the spring. And there we go. A bolt action 30 caliber pen designed for the left-handed users. So there you go, the 30 caliber bolt action pen with a walnut blank. As of this recording, my friend hasn't seen this pen yet, but once you see this recording, he will have received this. So I'll probably post in the comments what he thought of it. If you like what you saw, hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so that you can get notifications when I post up new videos. So hope you enjoyed what you saw, and I will see you next time. Thanks.